episode of Re-strategizing and Resetting for Business Rejuvenation. I'm Jessie Leong, the host for tonight's interview. For every interview episode, we will share 3 different strategies for companies to re-strategize and realign for their businesses during this challenging time. And I would like to warmly welcome our speakers for tonight. Our anchor speaker, Mr. David Leong.
Hello.
And our guest speakers, Ms. Annie Yap.
Hello.
And Mr. Eddie Lee.
Hi, everyone.
Mr. David Leong is the Managing Director of PeopleWorldwide Consulting. He started his entrepreneurial ventures early, soon after he graduated from the National University of Singapore in 1994 with a Bachelor of Business Administration degree. He has founded various companies since graduation, and his businesses span across diverse fields from corporate finance, advisory and restructuring, IT and technology, search and recruitment. He founded iProperty in 1999 and filed for public listing in year 2000. David is widely regarded as an expert resource and a leader in the business field. His views are often sought by local media such as the Straits Times, Business Times, 联合早报 and 联合晚报 on economics, politics, and HR issues. And next, I would like to introduce our guest speakers. Ms. Annie Yap is a prominent leader in the HR industry with more than 20 years of experience. She is recognized for entrepreneurial expertise and is widely regarded as Singapore's top business leaders. Ms. Yap specialized in CEO and board succession, board effectiveness consulting, leadership succession, and development. Prior to setting up AYP Group in year 2009, Ms. Yap was CEO of the GMP Group and was instrumental in the growth of the group from a local setup to one of Asia's leading staffing and HR consultancy firms. AYP HR Group has since transformed from a brick-and-mortar executive search firm to one of the largest HR software and services provider in Southeast Asia. Headquartered in Singapore, AYP has branches in Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, and Hong Kong. Our second guest speaker, Mr. Eddie Lee, is a seasoned transformational strategist. He has a wide spectrum of human capital experience in large organizations, both in the private and public sectors. Eddie has recently been appointed as the Executive Director of ASEAN Human Development Organization. He is also the founder and CEO of Future of Talent Economic Network. He is a business advisor and mentor to small and medium-sized enterprises and startups, partnering the founders on business and people strategies. Previously, Eddie was the Executive Director of Singapore Human Resources Institute. Prior to that, he was the Regional Chief Human Resource Officer, covering 24 countries in the Asia-Pacific region. And once again, thank you to Ms. Annie Yap and Mr. Eddie Lee for being here with us.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Today we have 3 HR experts in the house, and I would love to hear from Mr. David Leong what we will be sharing to the audience.
Of course, today's COVID situation brings about a lot of uncertainty, particularly to the workers. And this episode, we're going to focus on unemployment and providing solution or suggestion to workers to adapt, to adjust, and to consider and to reframe their career options. If today's situation is very grim, it's a bit scary, and a lot of people will be at a loss. In all fairness, we are still in a CD period. Come 1st June, when the bar is lifted, I will presume employers would have to start to rethink how they're going to reorganize their business. And this is not a typical down cycle in an economic chain. This COVID situation will bring about a very dramatic change in the business format and the way we reorganize our workforce. We have been seeing the government announcing the infection rate on a daily basis. And these are mostly our foreign workers. And the foreign workers compose of a very large bulk of our total workforce. And the whole orientation and the whole workforce fabric would have to be changed comes June, July, because as of now, the dormitories are very dense. The government would have to remobilize all these foreign workers to the different facilities so that the workers do not stay in such facility where they are dense. So a lot of change will happen. And of course, for Singaporeans and the PRs, what are going to be happening? We are likely to be seeing a lot of people going into a situation where the employers will ask them to take no pay leave, to take wage cut, and while these measures are being implemented, workers are at a loss. Can we have the next slide, Jesse? Now, this job support scheme introduced by our government is announced very early on, and when the CB first started, it was for the month of April. Now it covers for the month of May, where 75% of the Singaporean wage will be paid by the government, capped at now revised at $5,000. And remaining qualifying months for the different industry, the aviation and tourism industry will be 75%, the food industry, food service industry will be 50%, and all other sector will be 25%. This application of fund deployment to employers to help leave their company, it's going to be temporary. And the first 2 months of 75% which supplement already cost the Singapore government billions of dollars. So if the subsidy and wage support is taken off, I suspect comes June and July, you will see a lot of retrenchment, a lot of cutting of workers from the workforce because there are simply no business to work on. Do you have any views on this?
Yeah, I think this job support scheme, I'm grateful that the government actually, offer this to employer, because compared to many of the countries that we run our business, right, especially in the Southeast Asia region, Singapore is the only one that offers such, big support. But I think this support is really temporary. We need to think in the long term in terms of like businesses, how to really pivot and transform the business so that it's more sustainable, in the long run. Yeah, this is well and good, but it shouldn't, be the whole thing that the company is looking at. Yeah. And I do have like friends that told me like some of their staff actually just put in like 75% of the effort because or 25% of the effort because he said that 75% of the salary is paid by the government. So I think to have such attitude is actually quite bad at this situation. At this point, I think everyone, including employees and employer, really need to work together to tie through this together.
That's correct. I mean, the behavior has to change. I think the behavior part is an important part in this whole boom. Eddie, what's your view? Do you think the retrenchment numbers comes June, July would spike very sharply?
Yes, I think retrenchment numbers is going to go up. Yeah, because I think in terms of like business transformation, it will not take overnight. Yeah, it will take quite like at least a few months, if not years, to really see that growth in the new business. So in the meantime, some businesses retrenchment is inevitable because some of the businesses are actually like, for example, a co-working space, hot desking. At this point in time, I don't think anyone will embark on those services, right? So those companies may need to kind of like downsize for the moment. Yeah.
Eddie, what's your view?
Okay, I think that I agree what Annie and yourself has just mentioned about changing of behavior. But I think where I'm coming from is, first of all, is the changing of the mindset. So I think in some other webinars that I was involved in, one of the things that I talked a lot about was whether is it a half full glass of water or half empty glass of water. So a lot of times what happens is that we view this situation as something negative. So apparently, I mean, the way that I will want to position it is that I don't see it as negative. I see that this is really a very positive situation. Why do I have the mindset? It's because first of all, if I have negative mindset, that I'll be focusing on all the negative things that are happening, and then I will always be reactive, and I will always see all the obstacles that's coming up. But where I'm coming from as being a positive person was really to look at it in a very positive way, whereby looking at the industry, looking at economy in general, I would say that this is the best time for us to push everybody to onto the journey of transformation. Prior to that, while we have been talking about future of work, while we are talking a lot about transformation, I would say the take-up rate is relatively low because there is nothing to push us into that. Okay, we are all in a comfort zone. So this situation to me is I'm not saying that I believe in the all the theories all the conspiracy theory, but what I'm saying is that whether the conspiracy theory are true or not, I don't really care. But at least this is the time to push or rather force everybody to be on this journey of transformation. So in the past, a lot of them, they see that HR are the one that is a cost center. Now they begin to see that HR is not a cost center. So I mean, I would say that first of all, is two sides of the story. One is that HR can still be a cost center because the HR person, if they refuse to change themselves, they will continue to be a cost center. But for those who are a transformational HR practitioner, this is a time for them to shine. So I would say that first of all, it's really about the mindset, and also like even we talk about the job support scheme that the government put in place. I'm very grateful. Like what Annie says, I would say that across the globe, Singapore is probably one of the first few person to actually adopt all these support grants, whether is it from a family, whether is it from a workforce, or whether is it from the company perspective. We actually have quite a comprehensive kind of plan that was put in place, and not waiting for somebody else to follow, but we are actually the one to start it. So, but the thing is, should we over rely on this and expect the government to continue to do that? If so, then I would say that then we begin to remove the spirit of entrepreneurship. And the thing is, we are beginning to rely a lot on the government support, and we begin to be very complacent. So I would say that the shift of mindset is really that how do we survive? How do we thrive? Not just survive. How do we thrive once the support scheme is being removed? So this is something that I just want to bring to our discussion today.
So you correctly put, this is going to be a partnership between our government, which is very enlightened. I think our Ministry of Manpower, together with the DPM, our PM, and a whole cabinet, has put up a program that serves not only the employer, but the grant directly goes to the workers, and at a very granular level, even for the independent contractors, they are also given grant and help, and even people who are running their own small business, and if they qualify, they can also get the money from the government. Now let's go to slide, Jesse. Okay, this is again the government putting up and classifying the kind of budget they put up forth. This saving jobs, like I said, the saving job part is extension of a lifeline by the government for these 2 months. And now bear in mind the 2 months salary payment for all Singaporean and PRs already cost the government to the tune of billions of dollars. Now, this cannot be an ongoing concern because it eats into our treasury. So it is only fair to say that the government is giving the 2 months to the employer to help them retain the workers in the meantime. so that while they are being retained, the government is looking for ways to reorientate, to relook into the new landscape to see how they can help further. I believe there will be more help coming along the way, but you cannot help a business where they do not have business to do, because that is core and critical, right? So the saving of jobs, it's only temporary, because when June comes and when July comes, and company cannot survive, like Annie mentioned, co-working space, even cinema operators, those people who operate businesses that involve socialization, they will not survive. Even for F&B, it is very unlikely they will survive in such crunch, because they run a very heavy balance sheet. Now, let's go to the next slide, Jesse. This is the stabilization package, and again, going with the view that the government is providing help at the different layers and compartments and segment, so that help is reached even to the very granular grassroots level. Next level, next slide. Okay, now we go straight into the strategy. We're going to talk about three strategies today, and I'm going to make references and example of it. And then in between the strategy, then we'll cite our own example. This is 金蝉脱壳. So what does it actually mean? It means we have to do a transformation, adaptation, and change to escape from a stress state or situation. Now, this is exactly what's happening right now. Today's COVID is unprecedented. We would not see this probably in a century. The last big pandemic was SARS, and the scale of SARS compared to this COVID is of a different scale altogether. Different scale insofar as we have not seen countries shutting down. We have not seen airports shutting down. We have not seen people not flying. We have not seen businesses closing down at such rate. And in addition to the pandemic virus scare, we also have the China-US trade conflict just before that. And now the conflict is taken into this space and dimension. So in addition to this flu pandemic and a scare, we are also suffering from a geopolitical stress. So in a situation like that, how do we survive? Particularly not just for the employer, but the workers. How do they need to change? This is the part where I agree with Eddie that a transformation change must come, and to the workers themselves. And typically, we have been advising people to skill up, to have skill future, for people to skill up, to change the way they deal with things, and to learn so that they can continue to be relevant to the job market. But the situation is such that people are busy working, and to release the workers to the job market, to the training institute to do learning, becomes very challenging. And in this period of restive season, where we are all holed up at our home, we can't do very much learning. But comes the lift of the CB. I think Singaporeans should pose to take as much training grant as possible, to be trained and upskill in the area of e-commerce, in the area of customer service, in the area where it will be relevant post-COVID. Things will change. I think the government will come out programs for training that will be relevant for the new economy. So I would seriously suggest for workers to go and take up the training grant, because the government is paying up to 90% of those training costs for workers. And then in addition to paying for the training costs, the government is paying workers training allowances at up to $10 per hour. Right? If you spend 6 hours, the government is going to give you $60 to pay you to be trained. And this is something that's very sweet. What do you think, Annie?
Yeah, definitely training, is a very, very core part in terms of in this transformation journey, because the business dynamics, the skill set is totally different. If you're going to run a different business, like if you're going to move brick and mortar into online, so you need different skill set. So training is definitely, very, very core. Yeah. So training is actually also, other than, of course, like getting a grant is very sweet, is very, very good. Then the mindset of the company is also, need to really support, the entire training. So I think constant education, and also even the person, right, need to have like the development mindset, like on its own, on her own, or his own free time, even during the CB period, right, to do a lot of e-learning, on his or her own. Yeah, rather than wait for the company to assign and all this. Yeah, because right now I think the strategy may be different, from last time where the HR will do all the planning and everything. So right now, a lot of people, right, they want to learn something that they're passionate about, or what are their strengths, and all this, which may not be the same as what the HR assigned to them. So I think, training comes in different dimension, other than, those that attending courses assigned by the company or the grant type. I think individually need to have that mindset of growth development as well.
That's correct. I totally agree with that. I think, Eddie, you should be a strong advocate for training, right? Since you talk about
Uh,
constant.
Yeah, so I probably would like to maybe not use the word training or use the word learning. Also because I've been working in a number of US MNC, and I think that is a very strong culture of learning, and there's also something that we call the learning culture in the organization. So I'm very much influenced by that. And one of the things that, besides being a HR practitioner, and one of the things I love a lot is to be involved in facilitating programs, development programs. And one of the things that I identify a lot is the moment training ends, the participant walk out of the room, they stop learning. That is a lot of times I observe that, and even in the learning space, we talk a lot about how do we measure the ROI and all these things. So, but we do observe the kind of behavior is that the moment they step out of the program, they actually straight away stop learning. And the question is that how do we follow up the learning? How do we make sure that the learning actually affects the right behavior and in terms affect the ROI of the business? So, and another thing that Annie already brought up, which I'm very much advocate of that as well, is really that a lot of the people, a lot of the workers, what happen is that they depends on the government, they depends on the company to tell them what are the programs to go for. But what happened is that I'm not saying this is wrong. I'm saying that this is, if I want to borrow the word tripartite kind of mindset, of course, tripartite is talking about government, companies, and the union. But my tripartite is quite different, which is really the government, the company, and the workers themselves, not the union, but the workers or the individual employees themselves, to really think about what do they want in their career. So they have to start to think about what do they want, and they need to take ownership. They shouldn't be letting the company or the government dictate what is the direction of their career, and then how do they grow in a career. So as much as I'm supportive of Skill Future, I love the money, okay, because it helps to defer a lot of costs. But what happened is that are we teaching people to focus on the skills and then not the mindset? Because what happened is when we acquire a certain skill, 5 years later, the skill will be made redundant, and the people will be back to square one of facing the redundancy. So the thing is, a lot of people are not educated or are not really spending the time to observe the trends moving forward and then plan their career accordingly. So I think that so that's the reason why I focus a lot on the learning mindset and the learning culture to get especially the individual. They really need to take ownership rather than to let somebody to become the owner of their life. So that is one of the things that I'm actually right now in the midst of developing a career coaching certification to really help people who are career coaches to really teach the right thing. Like example, right now I find that a lot of career coaches is teaching people on just how to write a resume, how to prepare for interviews, how to search for a job. But I would say that a very holistic kind of career coaching will be ready to guide people on what are the career options. Like, should they be an employed, or should they be self-employed, or should they be in a gig economy? So these are the different things that we need to help our workforce to rethink about it. And likewise, even if they think that they want to work in MNC and versus in SME and versus in government, what kind of attribute, what kind of behavior, what kind of mindset they need to have to thrive in those environments.
The way you describe, those are normal day situation training. Those are learning culture that you advocate on a normal peace day. Today's situation is very different, Eddie. Comes June, July, August, when when companies are doing retrenchment at high volume, you don't have coaching anymore like that to ask people to change their mindset. We have to deal with the high rate of unemployment, and how do we therefore shift our workers to a place where they can start to be trained for something that will be in an emerging economy, right? Now, we all buy things from e-commerce site, and as of now, as of today, we are all mostly at home. We buy our goods and order our things from Taobao, from Lazada, from Carousel, from all kind of e-commerce sites. We buy our food from Grab, Panda, and behind that service provision, there's a whole entourage of people all working to make things happen. Now, the logistic part, it's complicated, and they need people as well. So these are areas of job availability. But when our retail shops in the mall departmental stores, now we have many departmental stores now rolling down and closing down. We have F&B operators who may just shut after the CB is lifted, because right now the government has provided under the Temporary Provision Act to allow them to survive, and ask those people who are owed money not to press charges for insolvency and bankruptcy. That will deter and provide a long lifeline for them to survive a little bit. But no business is no business. You can't have revenue, you can't pay your wages, people have to be let go. So the situation we are dealing with today comes the next 3 months is going to be very, very, very complicated, because we're going to have a high volume of unemployment. What are you going to do with them? Apart from giving them training grant, giving them one-off financial assistance, we need to deploy them to jobs. And the government have to have a heavy hand to play in this instance. This is not about choices today, because people are unemployed, they cannot feed their family. We have to deal with such situation with urgency. So that's why this is called 金蝉脱壳, meaning to say we take this period where the golden cicada is coming out of the shell, so that they can take on a new shell and become a new person with a new job that may pays better and relevant to the emerging economy. A lot of things that we are dealing with today, it's going to be very painful, because I run a business, I have various businesses, and some of the businesses literally have zero revenue. And we have to keep workers for 2-3 months, 4 months. And how long can we keep? Because for the next 6 months, I don't imagine that they're going to have any revenue coming through. How do we survive? And this is only one company that have faced problem that I know, because I run them. And I have many other businesses of the same situation. So we have to restructure and put our workers and deploy them to train for something that may be relevant to them. Maybe not working with me anymore, but we have to out deploy them so that we can find meaningful engagement. Because professionally, we are recruiters. We cannot be leaving our own workers in a lurch, because we are helping people look for jobs, right? So in a situation where now foreigners cannot even fly in to take up jobs, because nobody can fly in. How do you do foreign recruitment? We can't. So I think the situation is going to be very dire, and we need very strong, aggressive method to solve problem, because it's like going into ER in a hospital. This is an emergency crisis. This is not a normal day learning culture we are talking about. So Annie, you want to add something else before we move on to the next slide?
Yeah, I mean, I do agree, lah. I mean, it's like, but there's a dire straits, but I think mindset, culture of the company, takes a while, to build. Yeah. So it's really a balancing, of the timing and all this at this point in time. Yeah.
I hope that comes the period where we have to deal with this local Singaporeans, because I think the ministry is very busy right now dealing with our dormitory matters and making sure that our foreign workers are safe and they're going to be released back into the workforce. How are they going to be segregated? Because some of them are still in isolation ward and they've been staying there for 30 days, 40 days, and when they are released back into the workforce and into the society, will there be infection? And these are things that the government is very committed to make sure that we don't have a situation of high infection at the community level, because the workers are going to be released back into the workforce. So when that problem is resolved, I think the next big wave of problem for the Ministry of Manpower will be to solve our local unemployment situation. For the last 10 years, our unemployment numbers are hovering between 2.3%, maybe touching 3% over the last 10 years. And I think this unemployment rate will be much higher than in SARS. In SARS, I think our unemployment rate was in the region of 4%. And I think this number will be even greater because during SARS, we took barely a year to jump out of it, and we recovered very quickly. Jesse, can we have the next slide? Again, like for instance, how do we change job? Some jobs in a normal situation, we may never have the chance to jump in and say, I want to go into the finance industry or get trained for that kind of industry. Now, MAS has come up with a slew of programs for the finance industry, and they even have internship. And they are more willing to take people in to be trained for this emerging economy, because MAS is now playing with the Payment Service Act and enlisting people who are dealing with digital banking, dealing with cryptocurrency exchange, dealing with payment gateways, and this needs new skills and new talent to be stuffing up for those jobs. So I think for those people who are a bit ambitious and in a normal situation, you cannot get into this kind of industry, you can now jump into the training program, and I'm sure the rejection rate for such training program will not be too high because the government is providing training budget to train people for the job. And then very soon after training, you have opportunity opens up to you. And this is a totally new economy and new job and new company. So this is what I mean, where in a typical normal day, when you are training for the job that you are doing, right, which may be obsolete now. So we are not talking about normal training to do your job better. We're not talking about training to cross to another job where your last job is no longer relevant. Eddie, you have anything to say to that?
Yeah, so I think back to the earlier point whereby really that the individual should start to keep a lookout, like what are the trend moving forward. So like example, we talked a lot about the digital transformation. So in the past, that a lot of people are really very happy doing their own job. Like example, even people in the marketing, they're just focusing on doing the traditional way, or even if they do digital, they are just doing something that's very basic. So now they can actually start to explore, like even using AR, VR as well. They can also start to look at how do they adopt the different platform, even like social media, and the things, how do we engage people who are now going to be more focused on working from home. I mean, there are companies who say that I think Twitter is it. I think they actually released and say that they are going to look at permanent working from home. Of course, Microsoft come out and say that maybe they are not looking at that, even though yes, they are doing. So there are different school of thoughts. But I think that it is time for the different group of people to explore, to really look at the trends and how to use this situation to their advantage, to pick up a certain good skill so that they can be more progressive. and have something a better career in the future.
Of course, of course. Jesse, can we move to the next slide? See if we can move to the next strategy. This one is called Pao Chuan Yin Yin. So this strategy is a very simple strategy. It just change from a worthless object to something of worthiness through an exchange. So how do we use this strategy in today's context? So the COVID situation allows for job seekers to actually trade in their current job. Like I said, if you don't like your current job, right, and the company may even trench you for that matter, because the job will no longer be relevant in today's context. You have no job to do, right? For you to now goes into a different industry where you would never probably contemplate, because you're too busy doing your old job last time. Because you're busy, and because you're busy, you have no time to be trained, you have no time to be skilled, you have no time to consider other options. But in today, you have the chance to consider, relook the horizon to see whether can I go into a new industry, particularly in the IT and e-commerce space. IT does not mean programming; those are hardcore skills that needs a lot of certification. But you can be a stakeholder in the value chain. You can be the customer service, or you can deal with the bots. You can deal with the phones. You can deal with the returning queries from buyers, right? And I've also been coaching many different companies, and among them, I also coach an AI company. Now, the whole idea of AI is so fabulous, but it can't work on its own. It has to have human intervention. Now, the AI will take in all the information and conversation between parties, right? It can be from emails, it can be from the bots, it can be from the WhatsApp. They will take in all these streams of information, even including a phone call. They will transcribe the phone call into words, and then they put the words all into a pool, and then they do machine learning, and then they pull up emotive words and intent, and then they can float up all the different suggestions and different desire and intent of the asker or the person who calls. And then they can even do upselling, cross-selling with those information, because they have data. Nothing beats a human voice when you deal with people. Nothing beats dealing with a person face to face if you need to, right? But these are technology that's available right now, but it still needs human intervention. So in areas like that, people can be trained for those new work. And what's most beautiful and sweet, like I said, the government is paying 90% of those training courses. And in between, you still get your training allowance. No worse off for the workers. The government is investing heavily in this. But our Singaporeans, our own people, must therefore start to change behavior to make sure that they are ready now to say that I'm willing to cross from here to there. And since I have this free time and there's no business, because I'm being retrenched, I'm going to take this course and position myself in the new job comes 2021. So you might dare to throw the bricks to lure the jade in return. Right, Eddie?
Yep.
So Eddie, what are the thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is definitely, at this point in time, really there's nothing to lose. Right?
Nothing to lose.
Yeah, nothing to lose. Yeah, there's only more to gain. Yeah, I got, just like an example in my organization, she was a recruiter. Okay, so as we transited our business, from recruitment, to more tech and payroll services, I mean, I didn't expect her to have the garang to take up, this new role. We sent her for training with NTU. She was, I think her highest education was a secondary school, but she actually jumped, she was very daring, and she read to go, and she took on the course with NTU. And you know what? Now she's my head of customer experience throughout the whole
Beautiful,
Asia.
right? Yes.
Yeah, beautiful, yeah.
Just because she dare,
Yeah,
just
she
because
dare.
she challenge herself.
That's the first step forward.
That's correct.
Mm.
Eddie?
Yeah.
Any from your side?
So I think that so from a worker perspective or from the employee perspective, individual perspective, I would say that take opportunity of this because right now, as an employee, you work for one company. So the thing is that if you pick up a skill set and subsequently you can move into gig economy, which can actually scale up even your financial earnings. So that is where I say that people have to start to think about it, that how do they progress moving forward. And I do foresee that in the future, the workforce is going to shift from full-time employment. You will see a huge component of that. I will not say like I'm not predicting 50%, but I'll say that is the percentage of gig economy is going to increase significantly. So that is where a lot of people will, if they move into gig economy, of course there are the pro and cons. They have to also think about it very carefully. They lose all the benefits that is associated with being employed. But then again, they can scale up their earnings, and they can also have the flexibility to spend time with to do what they want to do. So it's something that they. But the thing is, important thing is they need to pick up a skill set that will be able to be valuable, not something that is going to be outdated.
Everything will be outdated over time. So it is a continuous learning mindset that would make a person relevant to the job market. Now, 10, 15 years ago, when Annie was running her GYP, and now she runs her own AYP, and I started my own business. The context of those time and today, they are vastly different, right? Even as business owner ourselves, we had to shift, remodel, reshape, refocus, recast ourselves, and reportray ourselves in the market to make ourselves relevant. And how do we make ourselves relevant? It is just to change. And the habit of changing must be in the mindset of our workforce, our workers, our individuals, Singaporean, our uncle, our aunties, our staff, everyone that we meet. Right, this mindset has to start to seep into their head that this is not going to be the same here onwards. The reason is because the work format and the work arrangement will change. The government has said very clearly, even on the lift of the CB in June, company is still encouraged to do telecommuting. As far as possible, stay at home to do your work. That changed the whole threading, how you stitch your fabric together, to change the whole threading of the whole shirt, the whole fabric, because we have never thought of telecommuting as a de facto standard employment. Now it has become so in the last 2 months. Offices will become irrelevant, or co-working space will now be not relevant anymore because people needs to have certain social distancing. So the idea and concept of space will now need to change. We know that in a shopping center, they measure space by PSF. They need to do a number of turns on the space to generate the flow of goods, so that they measure their space, how much revenue can they generate per square foot of space. Same in a restaurant. If you go in a restaurant, the restaurant has a fixed capacity. They can sit 30, they can sit 50, and in a very congested environment, so that we can have a turn of table, and every person that comes in and out, they are counted as revenue count. Food fall in a shopping center is also very important. You go to Musafa, you walk between the shelf are all very tight because they want to put as many things as possible. So you have space optimization to increase revenue. But in today's context, with social distancing, how do you put shelves so close where people have to squeeze through the shelf to buy something, to pick up something, or to be so close to each other when we pick up something? In a normal day, that's okay, right? But in today's context with social distancing, the whole idea of space change. So from the way you work, from the way you shop, from the way you move around, have to change. So the whole business paradigm shift and change. So it's not going to be the same anymore. Maybe go to the next slide, and then we can discuss the point based on the next slide. So this one is very interesting. Following slide, Jesse. This 偷梁换族 it is to change the strength of the key support and to change the formation to win. How do I explain this in today's job context? We used to have a certain pillar, and if I'm the breadwinner for the family, and I have been says a retail assistant as a breadwinner, and in today's context, that job would no longer be relevant to me because I can't go back to the shopping centers and stand there to serve my customers. During this period, opticians are allowed to operate their spectacle shop. And I went to buy some food and walked past a optician, and they put chairs outside to not to allow people to walk into their shop. And when a customer walks in and says, I want to change my lens to a transition lens, the lady walks out and says, we can do that, and the price is $180, and are you willing? And the guy says, I can't choose. They say, no, you can't do it right now. So the whole customer interaction in that process, I was quietly observing, shifted and changed because people are very fearful of interacting. Right? So retail assistant job, I think post-COVID will also change because of social distancing requirement. So the job may no longer be relevant anymore. People will not be at the shop. People may just buy online, right? With assurance that if they don't like it, they can return it and then they can have my money back. For so long as there's a transaction, commerce still happens. But in this context, I think that the retail business is going to have sharp downturn because people have already got used to buying things online. And jobs like that, like I said, retail assistant, and that was a main pillar for the family because she was a breadwinner. Now need to change. They need to change to another support. And then the new support must carry the weight of the family right now. So in today's time, workers have to consider what they want to do. The job may no longer be available. They may need to change the support, which is the pillar, right? And change the formation, go into a different space and try new things. Because as much as I like to say that people can work from home, but the fact that the government start to advocate telecommuting and to make that into a de facto working method and a working process will change employer and employee engagement. The relationship would need to shift. The typical contracts may change. Eddie, you may be correct. Gig economy may have to come in. A person may do 2 or 3 jobs all at the same time, serving a few customers because they are working from home, right? And everything will be integrated by a certain software or application where they can manage from there. Meetings can be conducted like this. No lack of conversation content because we're still saying the same thing, except that I can't smell your breath, I can't shake your hand, right? I can't give you a hug, but the conversation content still remains the same. Work can still be conducted, transaction can still be made. Things will change, isn't it? What are your thoughts, Annie?
Yeah, I think on the perspective of retail, right, for sure, there won't be as many retail shops in the future. Yeah, but I won't say it's zero either. So some brands will still keep some shops here and there because there are customers who like to go in there and feel the handbag or feel the texture of the whatever, try on the clothes and all this. But when they place their order, they probably will place at home, online. So in terms of retail assistants, right, all this number of retail assistants, they may need to, because there are some common skill set, like you still need customer service, like what you say, whether there's AI or machine learning or whatever, they still want to hear a voice, a person, a real person, or see a real person online. Yeah, so these retail assistants, they can be reskilled, and transform and move on to like customer support online.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Your views, Eddie?
So So the thing is, the business have to look at the hybrid model. So agree with what Annie mentions that there are some shops that probably will still want to have the brick and mortar, but then again, it really depends on the business needs and how do they want to maximize the profits. So some of it they keep the shop is more for branding purposes. So is it worth to spend the money to keep brick and mortar for branding purposes? For some cases, yes, especially for those luxury goods. But then there are some it may not be possible to do that. So it really differs business to business. So there's no one size fit all. I think we all know about that. So the individual owners and HR person, they really have to sit down together to look at what is the and also of course together with the financial person to really look down and do the cost benefit analysis, and then before they adopt a certain thing. So to me, I'm rather cautious to take something that is more scaled up, okay, rather than you straight do something and you see a negative impact on yourself. So maybe you can do a pilot one to do a certain observation first. So and also probably want to look at the customer behavior and also maybe do some survey feedback. So of course, all this like what I mentioned is that we do, if without the COVID situation, we probably have the luxury of time to do that. But then in this kind of situation, I think we need to be a little bit more nimble and be more willing to try different things. So back to the example, what Annie shared, this lady who is pretty daring to make a decision for her own career. So likewise, this is also a call for business people to really want to be even more daring. And of course, when I talk about daring, not saying that you take all the risk and without calculating the associated cost, but it's really to be prudent as well.
The state of affair today would vastly change. The work arrangement, the work context between employer and employee will have to be redefined. The normal 5-day week, 5 half-day week would no longer apply. I've seen companies right now making suggestion to their employees to say that because of this situation, we're going to do wage cut. Wage reduction will be pending, and I'm very certain this wage reduction will be one of the many ways for companies to reduce their overall cost. So there are a few things that will be happening shortly after May. No pay leave will be one of them, and some companies already rolled that out. After you exhaust the no pay leave, they would goes into a wage reduction. And in between a wage reduction period, when the companies still are finding their foot in the murky water because business are brought to a trickle, they can't survive. And very soon after the wage reduction, it may be for a month, for 2 months, for 3 months, the company will be likely to go into a frozen up situation. They will freeze up because they don't have enough cash flow. Just imagine you have to run a business and keep paying costs while you are at it, while people are not reporting back to your office to work. You still have to pay rental, right? Even though the rental may have some rebates, you still need to pay rental. Unless you say you shut the whole office down. Now, of course, the government has instituted the temporary act to allow the tenant to stay, and the landlord cannot take an adverse action on the tenant. But what if the period crossed into 2021? Can you still hold on to the property? And government at that point in time says that half your people who are eligible to work from home do not need to come to office to work. Then office space starts to drop in demand because nobody is renting anymore. Property prices will start to shift downwards. So there's a whole downstream of activities that will happen that will cause the whole economy to freeze up again because suddenly your property are not in demand anymore. So what would change? employee relationship will change. And then the place of work situation will change. The spatial arrangement, because of the social distancing, the way you work and engage will now need to change. Now people are putting shield between themselves and their colleague because they don't want the breath and the vapor to come towards them. They need to have a certain distance, right? That will increase costs. And when that applies to workspace, it also applies to your restaurants, right? You can't sit next to each other so closely. Annie and myself works in International Plaza long time ago. And then when we are hungry, we go downstairs, and there are lots of food court food stores downstairs. And then in a bench, you have people sitting very closely to eat their quick lunch, and then they goes back to work again. So that kind of thing will not happen anymore. Social distancing will takes that this kind of operation cannot operate like that because the virus would be there to stay, at least for some time. So relationship will change, space will change, right? The last thing that needs to change is the mindset, the habit, and the behavior of our workers, and it needs to change. Because if they do not change to say that I'm willing to embark on a new job right now, I'm going to be trained for the new job, and I'm going to jump into the training provision and take the grant by the government, it is very hard for our government to place them to jobs that will be relevant. Now, there are a lot of jobs that are available, I'm very certain, and the government needs to structure this right now. That we have no leeway to say you choose what you want, because as of now, the government needs to fill these people with jobs so that you have your social distancing ambassador. Those people who have lost their job goes and get a role as a social distancing ambassador. You have Swiber, right? And you go to E2IC, their pay is even higher than the pay of a nurse because they're taking exceptional risks, right, to deal with scrubbing from the nose and the mouth, right? And they have to gear up, and they are paid more than the nurse. So government is trying to get more people to be involved in the job, but we need to prime and position ourselves correctly for jobs that is for the new economy, or what I like to call the AC, after COVID. Before COVID, it's called BC. BC jobs may no longer be relevant, or it may be reformatted, or it may have to be restructured. AC, the relationship of a job between employer and employee, would change. The space where they operate would change. The method of transaction would change, but job still needs to get done because people still buy and sell. People still need a job to get paid so that they can support their family as a breadwinner. So that's the long and short of it. Any last thing that you would like to share with us, Annie?
Yeah, I think I always believe in this saying, if the rate of change of outside is faster than the rate of change inside, right? Then the death is you can see the death. The death is inside. Yeah, so change is inevitable, and right now it becomes constant. It becomes like faster, and becomes bopian. You like it or not, you just have to change. Otherwise, you cannot survive. Yeah. Otherwise, the other way is that you've got cut salary, right? Then you change your lifestyle, lor. That is also quite jialat. Yeah. So I rather change. I mean, I rather encourage my people to really change for growth, for productivity, than to change your lifestyle.
That's right. I think that the third part is the most important. The habit change, the behavior change, the mindset change must come quickly. We have no time to think. Once a high unemployment rate hits the market, all of us will panic because we do not want our Singaporeans to be affected so adversely. I'm sure government will come out with the next third wave of help or fourth wave of help. But I think the real thing is to move into action, to quickly change gear, to go into a different direction, because the sun will still rise, the sun will still set, the day will still comes, right? But we need to do things differently.
Yeah, and also I think change, right? You don't need to have really like going to moon type of change, like type of innovation, even like 1 degree of pivoting, right? Over time, the area, the dimension, the changes you're going to see is really enormous. Yeah, you just need to change a little, but as long as you start to change.
Well put, Annie. 1 degree of change, and the pivot will have a different perspective, right?
Hmm.
I think that probably wrap up the thing. Okay, over to you, Eddie. You help us do a wrap up before we sum it up, and then this probably be the end of the chat.
Okay, I think that maybe the last point I just want to add on would be really be very open to changes. I think that yes, of course, we are in a very unique situation where there's a lot of panic. Uh, the feeling will be here. Okay, I mean, we cannot deny the feeling. We have to recognize the feeling. But the most important thing is that what's next. We need to think through that. Okay, yes, when we panic, we have all the concern and everything, but we need to move forward. So when we talk about moving forward, the next thing is that we need to be open to the different ideas, the different options. So same thing like what Annie shared is really about change. It's going to be faster. So the thing is that if you don't want to change, then you have there is definitely some part of it you need to change. Either you change your lifestyle or you change your capabilities. You upgrade your capabilities. So either way, you have to change as well. So the next thing is that which change is more painful or which change is better for you. So do the own calculation. So if the change of maintaining your current lifestyle is greater, then okay. Then you need to make sure that you have the kind of capability moving forward to make sure that you maintain your current lifestyle. But you think that to acquire the kind of skill set is going to be difficult, then you have to downsize you have to downgrade your lifestyle. So it's the same point as what Annie says, but it's really about having an open mindset and really and also talk to different people, use people as a sounding board. So talk to people, make sure that you get certain feedback. And even if you have some answers that may not be very positive, but go back to the drawing board and think through again whether does it actually make sense. How do you make your whole thing, your own, what you want to do to become better? So this is more from a business and also for the individual as well.
Okay, then let me do a wrap up. And in today's context, it is not about making more profit, putting a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan, because that is not visible in the short to mid-term run. It is about survival and having the gumption to survive this period. We're not even talking about profitability. We're not even talking about making a little more or a little less. It's about survivability. Many companies going forward, I would suspect, would not be able to survive. It is only on a lifeline right now because the government is giving support. And because we have an enacted law to prevent companies from suing another company for bankruptcy or insolvency because they can't pay. This would prolong the period where companies are held up by this lifeline provided by the government. And for employers, responsible employers like us, we have to make sure that we try to uplift our workers to make sure that they don't enter into a financial crisis where food cannot be provided for their family. And I think from that standpoint, we have to make sure that we have to take care of that as a responsible employer and work along with the government with all the different grants that's available. Make sure that those grants can be funneled directly to them at a very granular and grassroots level. So there are 3 things that we said today, and I'd like to summarize that. The employer-employee relationship will change. We must expect that to change because we are all working in a different format now. You don't have to go back to office, sit in front of the screen, see a colleague on the left, see a colleague on the right, and says hi, and then goes to have lunch, quick lunch downstairs, right? So that we can rush back to the office and work again. The work method, the work interaction, the work format will change. So therefore, the relationship between the employer and the employee will change. The second thing is the space that we work from that will change. If telecommuting becomes a de facto standard, then work will be revolving, not office-centric anymore. it will be dispersed strategy. They work in multiple locations because people can be staying in Jurong, can be staying in Ang Mo Kio, can be staying in Toa Payoh, can be staying in Queenstown. But if they're integrated with technology, right, workflow still can be conducted. Meetings can be conducted like that. Like I said, the only thing that you can't smell is the perfume of your colleagues sitting next to you or the breath of the colleague when they try to speak. You can't do that. But communication will still happen. Deal can still be done. Transaction can still be done. Nothing will be lost. Change in the space that we operate will be different. So that will be the second change. The third change would be the change of the habit, the mindset, and to have the gumption to shift gear at this time. This would change the whole works of our Singapore workforce. And I think after our Ministry of Manpower get busy with all the different problems that they face, and I think we have to give credit to our minister for pulling us through, right, to make sure that foreign workers are safe. And thereafter, comes June, the foreign worker, once it goes back to the work site, they will keep the segregation to make sure that Singaporeans are safe, right? And work still can get conducted. And by which time, they have to deal with a new wave of problem, which is the local unemployment and retrenchment that will be happening real soon down the road. And then how do we encourage these workers to shift mindset, to go into learning, and then to go into the job where they may not be familiar. And like Annie's case, her staff becomes her head because as an employer, she gave her a chance despite having qualification issues because she premised her selection on her skill and her energy. So the same with employer. When the employer now starts to hire people, and if the person is fully capable and may not have that piece of document called the degree, then the general acceptance of this will allow more people to have opportunities. So that part also has play of the employer to make things happen. So it's because Annie is kind enough to consider her for the job of a head of the department, despite her previous vocation. It's because the employer gave her a chance. So changing also means that people need to give you a chance. And I hope that all employers will give their employee chances to take up new roles. And let's try. We will never know what will happen. I'm sure as a country, we can pull in together to make sure that this thing will work for us. And Singapore will come out better than many other countries.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's all I have to share.
Yes. With that, I would like to thank Ms. Annie and Mr. Eddie for joining us for today's session. And also again, our anchor speaker, Mr. David, for giving us such an insightful session.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Eddie. Thanks, Annie. Thank you. Right. Bye.
Bye.